All right, Troy, how you keeping, mate? You doing well?
Yeah, not so bad, man. Are you good?
Yeah. Can't complain, mate. Yeah, can't complain at all.
Yeah, brilliant.
So, I know you've been heavily working on the new album. How's that all going, pal?
Really good. I just received the final mixes of the album last week.
Oh, nice.
I got a guy from Brighton, a producer called Paul Winstanley, and he's just absolutely knocked out the park. And it kind of needed to, really, because I've put so much into this one. We recorded down at Rockfield. I got in
That's
the
amazing.
best.
And I love.
Yeah, and man, it was just such a special place down there, and I got in. This kind of story goes back to sort of 2020. I kind of wrote the material in probably in the first quarter of 2020, and actually 2019. 2020 was right, wasn't it? It was, yeah,
it was.
And so it was early 2019. Wrote the tracks and booked in October to go to Brighton Electric Studios, and I went down there and we tracked the stuff. And it just wasn't right, it just didn't have the right vibe. It just wasn't. Yeah. Paul was still producing, but it just wasn't. It wasn't good enough. And I thought, right, I want to get in. If I'm going to do this, I thought about Rockfield, and was it probably that would have been September of 2019. I bumped into a guy called Darby Todd. Who's a drummer. Yeah, he's a monster drummer. We were both on the festival bill, and I've known him, but known of him anyhow online for a long time. And he was in the Darkness for a bit. He's played with like Robin Ford and Martin Barr from Jethro Tull, and just tons of people. And he's unbelievably solid and just an amazing player. And I thought, right, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to do Rockfield, I want to take the best band I can possibly get in there. I can't. Yeah. If I'm going to hire someone, I'm going to get the best. Yeah. So we spoke actually when I met him in Poland. I sort of got chatting to him. We were sort of chatting quite a while, and he said, "Well, we'll do something together." And it's one of those things that a lot of musicians say, but it never happens.
Never happens.
Yeah. It's always a nice thing to say to someone. But I thought, right, I'm gonna, I'll give him a shout, give him a call, and he was up for it. And a guy he plays with a bass player called Dave Marks, who's just out of this world. He's one of these guys. He can play anything. I've seen footage of him playing sort of like Billy Sheehan stuff. But he does a lot of sort of like soul stuff. He's worked with Hans Zimmer, the film composer like guy. He's again, he's just another off the scale player. And so I got those two.
Nice.
And sent them the demos. Went to Rockfield and met up there because we didn't have any rehearsals. I just sent them the material.
Oh wow!
And got in there, and it was just unreal. That these guys are just sort of super nailed it, like beyond belief. It was quite shocking. It was like because normally with a band, you do your rehearsals and all that kind of stuff.
Don't you? Yeah, the rapport and the sort of chemistry going, and
yeah. Well, these guys, it was there, like bang. It was, and in fact, to the point where like it was my material, but I was like, Jesus, I hope I know it as well as they do, because they were off the scale with it.
Oh, nice, man.
And they were also sort of making little comments about sort of arrangements and things like that. About sort of like maybe we could tweak this here and there. And they're such good players. I was just like, even though they were my tunes, and normally you're a bit sort of precious over your own stuff, and I was like, nah, these guys, they're going to enhance it. They're not going to sort of, it's going to make it better. So we did some work on a few arrangements of things and stuff. And so that all got done, but it got shelved because that's the lockdown thing. That was in the February of 2020.
Yeah.
So the lockdown happened in the March, and I thought, well, it was looking sketchy for the year. I thought at the time, back in March, I was thinking, well, this isn't going to blow over. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to go and release that, spend all that money, and then just to like put something out and not be able to tour it and not be able to sell any products.
Like say when you've invested as much as
it'd be mental. Just be absolutely mad to do that. So I put the other things out last year. I did Ireland and just did that at home and put out some music.
I was going to say you weren't quiet last year on the release front, mate.
Well, no, it was good. Because you're sort of like you're stuck. I just thought try and make the most of that sort of time. without dropping this album that I'm just doing now. So I put the things out last year, and I got wind back on it. I said, right, okay, we're gonna look at sort of beginning of the year to get these mixes finished off. So I was recording all the overdubs I needed to put in at my place. I could just do that at home. I've got a little studio, so I just sent all the extra bits he needed. Yeah, and he's been working on the mixes for 3 or 4 weeks, and he finally sent them to me last week, and it was just I was just like shocked. It took a little bit of because everything I've done up until now is I've done it myself. I've done everything, just played all the instruments, and then you're completely in control of it. You know what you do. You know all the little tweaks and the soundscape you're after and all that. So when he first sent it to me, it was a bit like, whoa, this is very different. It's a different environment, sonic environment. You know what I mean? It's like it took me a while to get my head around it and kind of go, okay, right, this is different. But once I got where he was with it and the style, I was just sort of blown away. And then the final mix he sent me last week, and I was just like, Jesus, this is kind of like this. Yeah, it was. It's just a whole different.
You think it's sounding better because you've got someone from the outside, as it were, taking a look at it rather than being stuck in the forest and not seeing the woods for the trees, sort of thing?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a different angle. And Win produces a lot of heavy bands, like heavier than proper sort of heavy, and so he knows that kind of weight. He understands how to get that. Which when I've recorded my own stuff, I've always tried to keep it sort of slightly sort of psychobilly, sort of it's kind of open. The drum sounds fairly open. It sounds natural.
Yeah,
the guitars are kind of distorted, but they're still they're not heavy, and this is it's not like, don't get me wrong, like not everything on it is like flat out and heavy, but he's definitely put weight in there that I could never do. I could never put that in. And with Darby playing drums, because Darby's a heavy player, it kind of dictated that really, because once the drum tracks were down and you got a drummer playing that style, that kind of way, you can't get away from it. You can't, you're not gonna. No. But that was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to go more into that sort of like feel, and for this album and get it sort of big and fat and just having it, I think that was where I wanted to go with it.
Oh, nice.
And because weirdly, I put Island out, and that was the most acoustic sort of bluesy sort of thing I think I've ever done. There's some really clean tracks.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously you're saying about the heavier side of things, obviously Island being your last release, and that was very sort of acoustic driven and very easy to go. But weirdly, the rock stations, the sort of like the online sort of rock community, more than the blues community. You've got the IBBA, the rock guys played it more than the blues guys, which I thought was bizarre. I thought this is the least likely thing the rock DJs would play. And I was confused. I was like, it was great, it was brilliant, but but I was at the same time, I was like, hang on, this is really odd. The IBBA aren't playing it that much, and yet all the rock channels are sort of, so it was weird. We always got good, always got great feedback.
No, it's been, you've always been brilliant with playing my stuff. Always massively appreciate that.
Oh man, like I said to anyone, I'm a music fan with a radio station. I just sit and play music I want to listen to for 2 hours, and if people like it as well and want to tune in, great. I don't. When I set up the radio show, there was, I think, because it's a small station, I think they were thinking, they wanted someone to come in and play. And as much as I like these bands, but just Bon Jovi and Guns N' Roses all the time, and and that's not what I wanted to do with it. There was so. You got your stations that are going to play Living on the Prayer and Sweet Child of Mine 24 hours a day. And go listen to one of them. But there's so many bands I've got to know, even just from a fan's point of view and a rock fan's point of view and a blues fan's point of view. But that, through going to gigs and again with Just Push Play and sorting all that out. And I thought there's so many great bands and artists around that don't get the recognition that they should deserve. So if I can do, I always said my radio station is, there's someone coming into my house and that's the music I'm going to play. If you come in my home, that's what's on my record player. Now, if I can play that for 2 hours and people pick up a band that they like, great. But
yeah,
well, the more I just push play on it.
Yeah. Well, the more you sort of look into it, you know, when you're sort of in the game of sort of like getting your stuff out there, you realise that the bigger bands, you know, the sort of bands who are sort of like pushed through, have got a bigger budget. You know, when they're sort of like and it's a lot that, you know, it's down to a lot to do with that. You know, the more I see and the more I find out, and the more you know, it's like if you've got a monster budget, you'll push through because that's the, you know, a lot of radio stations like, you know, other ones like Planet Rock, you know, and some of those, you know, you're lucky if you get picked up just randomly. If you're not doing that randomly, you need someone who's going to push that for you. You know what I mean? And that's not free. So, and it's the same with magazines. You know, back when I used to buy Kerrang when I was a kid. You know what I mean? When I was sort of, you know, in the good old days of that magazine, and back in the, you know, you'd believe that the bands were in there because they were just great bands. You know, and they are great bands, but they've got a PR
someone with a big bag of cash behind them as well,
and a PR team that's kind of like getting them into those, you know, mags, you know, and that's kind of it's an interesting thing when you sort of find out how that all works.
Yeah. Like you say, there's that sort of fairy tale side of it where you think when you're a kid growing up and you just, if I'm good enough at playing my guitar and I'm good enough at playing my bass and my drums or whatever it is that you do, and again a good enough band, then that's all I need to do. But
yeah, no, it's, you know, that's step one, and you know. Yeah, but it's, you know, it's good, you know, it's you know, it's good that there's a good support sort of team of stations that are open to listening, you know, and you guys must have to listen to a lot of music because, you know, I've spoken to you before about it, you know what I mean? There's a lot of bands coming through, you know, and
there's
that's going to take up a lot of your time when you're sort of thinking of your programming, you know, and
there is unfortunately, like, because music's such a huge passion of mine, and when I'm not planning the radio show as such, because I'll be honest, normally 2 days before I'm on air on a Friday, it's like, you know, and I still get PR things sent through to me and press releases and stuff, and sometimes it's bands I'm aware of and bands I'm already a fan of, and sometimes it's, you know, bands I'm not, and sometimes it's just someone who's listened to the show, like a local band or someone else on the upcoming side of things, and some, Lee, would you take a listen? I'll be honest, I spend a lot of time with headphones in of some description, whether it's at work and well, lately obviously working from home, I've got music on in the background while I'm working. Yeah. And if I'm at the gym, I've got my headphones in. If I'm in the car, music's on. Music's around me all the time. So normally it's a case of I just sit there, and I always say, if anyone's good enough to send me a track, I'm good enough to listen to it. I'm good enough to give it a shot. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I listen to stuff and it's not my cup of tea. It doesn't mean they're bad. It just means it doesn't click with me.
Doesn't click. Yeah.
But there's plenty of bands out there who are very good at what they do, but it doesn't, you know, it doesn't turn me on musically. But every now and then I find a gem. And when I find a gem, or I've found a band and I think, Jesus, there's bands I've played on the show that aren't stereotypically my kind of music. Yeah. But I've listened to it and gone, I'm putting that on because there's something there. And
yeah. And that's good. And that's good because, you know, there'll be people in the audience who will dig that as well. You know, that's you know, it gives them the opportunity to hear it, doesn't it? You know. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But no, music's too good not to share, man. It's a huge part of my life, and that's why I'm a music fan with radio shows. So when people get, you know, it's nice when I get to chat to people, and it's nice when the band send me their stuff.
Yeah.
So did you think that being at Rockfield then fed into the album as such? Then you were saying you were at the other studio before and it wasn't quite working as such, or did you think it was more the fact that you then had the band behind you as well by the time you got to Rockfield?
Well, it was both of those. You know, it was that thing of, you know, getting those players in who were kind of like that. Those guys, that's what they do, you know, that they're at that level, because, you know, for example, if you're sort of playing with the Darkness and they ask you to do a gig, when you get there, if you haven't got it nailed, you've got to have it nailed there, you know, and have done the homework, and those guys had just done the homework and they just played like you wouldn't believe, you know, like we did a couple of days just tracking the rhythm tracks, you know, the bass, drums, guitar, and every take Darby was playing it like he was doing a gig, like, because he's a very, you know, big arm player, you know what I mean? and he was doing it. It was like, Jesus, you know, and he was knocking hell out of them, you know, for 2 days, and keeping energy levels up. And I was shocked, you know, but also, like you said, I was speaking to Win, the producer, about this, and we were talking about Darby's drums, because like Win was just constantly blown away by when he was mixing, you know, how good his drums sound. And he said he's taken the same mics and you know, and mic'd up the same type of Ludwig that he was playing. It was one of those clear ones. I can't remember the
oh yeah, I know.
Someone listening will know them, but I think John Bonham, I think, used a sort of similar sort of thing. And he's never got that sound in any other studio. He was just, because he wants to get back there. You know, he's like, there's something very special about the rooms, and I think the desks.
Yeah.
But he was saying it was an unusual place from a producer or an engineer's kind of, you know, a point of view. It was pretty special. And
just before Christmas, there was a documentary on Rockfield I think it was on BBC, and I was watching that like that because you know, any music fan knows about Rockfield Studios and the classic bands that play Queen, Sabbath, Hawkwind, etc. And I thought, oh, that'd be good. I watched that, and they were saying the same thing. There was a lot of bands in there saying we tried it elsewhere, but in these rooms with that desk, in this situation, this is what's come out. And you've only got to look at the classic albums that have been made in that studio to know there's just got to be some magic in there. That's just those big coincidence.
No, those drum rooms, I think it's a lot to do, you know, it's bound to be a lot to do with the room, you know, the actual physical dimensions of the room. And you know, Darby was excited to be there, you know, Dave, all of them love being there. So I think that as well is kind of like your whole kind of like approach and mental state when you go into that place. You know, I mean, you're excited to be there.
Yeah,
I'm sure that kind of,
isn't it?
Yeah. You know, and I was like, as a kid, you know, well, I still am, you know, but when I was really young, I was a huge Queen fan. So Sheer Heart Attack and Night at the Opera and those albums.
Sheer Heart Attack.
Oh, it's a monster. And the drum sound, Roger Taylor's
huge.
The toms, they almost, you know, they come through the mix like, you know, no one, and I've always loved that. And when he's mixed this, you know, album, when you hear the tom fills, especially on the more open tracks, Jesus, like, you know, they're huge. And that does it for me, because I've grown up listening to production albums. You know, when I was a kid, I used to listen and didn't think of it in those terms. So, you know, just think of sounds, you know, but when you get, you know, more into the production, you think, all right, so you think more of the production techniques, like, you know, but so for me, it's like, you know, it's so good getting that back and hearing all that kind of detail. And we managed to do a track, the last track on the album's got the piano, you know, the one, the Bohemian Rhapsody piano. So we managed to get that in. Dave, the bass player, plays keyboards. So we talked about having a fade out with this piano, and we managed to get that in there as well. So
that's pretty cool, man. That must have been awesome to do.
It was. I tell you, it was. You know, it was a special few days down there. You know, I'm just genuinely, you know, excited to get something out that feels like a step up in production. You know what I mean? And I think the songs are stronger than the stuff I put out before. You know, sort of stronger choruses and stuff. So I'm excited to get it out. You know.
Have you got any plans to get any tracks out as yet? Or
well, you know, the album, I'm thinking, you know, drop the album sort of towards the end of the year, and then put sort of 4 singles out in the year. Just, you know, so it's a longer sort of period. You know, instead of just dropping like a single on the album, it's done. You know what I mean? You know. But what I want to do is get a video done for the first single, because it needs a, you know, with social media, it needs a visual. You know, nobody. If there's just an audio track up, everyone just scrolls by it. You know, no one's interested in just listening, even though that's what you want them to do, just listen. But no one's interested in that. So it's just tricky with the lockdown, you know, getting that video done, you know, at the minute, because, you know, Derby's down south, and so that's what I've been doing at the minute. I've been just researching sort of, you know, people to do the video, you know, and the album's just gone off. Well, it's gone off, but it will be done on the 2nd of February. It's going to be mastered down in Abbey Road.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, you know, I thought, well, I've gone that far with it.
Wow. So you got Rockfield and Abbey Road.
Well, it was so good. Like
in a bar, in it.
Well, the mixes he was sending to me, like, it was just so good. I was just like, yeah, this this is worth it, putting it, the sheen on it.
Yeah.
And I looked into Abbey Road has always been a sort of, a dream to sort of get it mastered there. And yeah, that from, when I first went down there, I thought it'd be lovely to get it mastered there. And so I started researching the different guys, because it's different masters, they got different sort of like stuff they worked on. And there's a guy called Frank Arkwright, and he's the guy I've gone with. I booked him for the second. And he's, he worked on some fantastic stuff. He's worked on, some of the guys worked on like things like Massive Attack and more dance music. Well, obviously I didn't want to go with those. I wanted to go with someone who sort of like has worked on sort of heavier music, and he's done sort of like System of the Down and sort of like but also sort of stuff like ABBA. He's really sort of like he's gone across the spectrum. You know what I mean? So I thought he seems to be the best, and he's one of the senior guys there. So so I should have that back probably on the second or third. He'll do it within a day. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm looking forward to hear what the difference is. What the sheen will be, what the bottom end will be like. And all those kind of those details that those guys that work on.
It's that thing, isn't it? When you get that. I mean, I've only been involved in stuff on a small scale, but when you get that mix back and then you get the post production thing, like just all those little tweaks, and it's never anything major if you were being too picky, but it's all those little tiny bits and pieces that just completely lift it up, and you get that thing back, and you're like, wow, well, I wouldn't even have thought of tweaking this, or I wouldn't have thought to do that. Yeah,
and that's what I'm hoping. Just to obviously they make sure all the levels are correct across the whole album. That's one of the first things. But there's also the I don't know whether they use the compression or not, where they just lift it a bit and just push it further forward. But yeah, I spoke to someone last night, Claire Free. Do you know Claire? Have you heard of Claire?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, I know that.
She spoke to me last night. She put a message on social media, so I contacted her privately. She had that guy, Frank Arkwright, do master her album. So it was really interesting. It was really interesting talking to her about it, because I didn't know anyone else personally who had worked with him, and she said it was just absolutely brilliant, and massively sort of polished it, and put loads of nice low end, and so I'm really excited about that.
And it's like you say, it's always good when you spoke to someone who's dealt with someone in whatever field it is, and you can get that feedback, which is always good to hear. I don't think there's with a place like Abbey Road, there'd be nothing to worry about as such. Because they got a good reputation, haven't they? But it's still nice to kind of hear a personal story, like of course. Did you change how you approach things once you heard the heavier side of the drum, and did you change anything that the way you'd written it, or did it sort of just merge as you were recording?
Well, when I was listening back, I put the main rhythm guitar down so we played it live as a 3-piece. But then when it came to overdubbing guitars, I changed the sort of guitars I use, because I use a lot of with guitars with pickups. I use a lot of gold foil pickups, those kind of like very openy, jangly 60s kind of pickups. But with this, I went for humbuckers and sort of like a heavier, DiMarzio sort of humbuckers. One guitar's got DiMarzio Evolution in there, which is, and a lot of it's tuned down to C, so it's a lot of it's pretty down and heavy. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, I definitely chose different guitars to put the overdubs on, and to make it fat, and double tracked it, so when choruses kick in, they're
really
big and wide. Yeah. But I just thought, go with it. That was my thing. I was listening to the drum tracks back, and I thought, this is the way to go. It's already sort of dictating which avenue it's going to go down.
Sounds cool. Did your so for Christmas you got that lovely resonator? Did that make an appearance on the album, or was everything all done and dusted by then?
It was all done. I used the Triolian I used on that one.
Nice.
So that's. I'm just sending that off. The one for Christmas. It's got to have a few bits done to it. There's a guy up in Leeds, Beltona Guitars. There's a guy called Steve from up there. He's going to do a few little bits on that, just to get it 100%, to get it set up. I want it, because you can set those resonators up very differently depending on how you set the neck angle.
Okay.
So he's going to do a neck reset for me, and also put dot markers in the side of the neck, because when you look down at the side of the neck, there's nothing there. And when you play, it's all right if you sat down and you can kind of look over the front of the guitar. but when you play, I want to use it for live, you know. And obviously you want to be looking down where, especially when you're singing. You know, if you're just a guitar player and you're not singing, it's fine. But if you're trying to look down with your left eye, you know, at the neck, you got, you know, the lights are flashing. You need those little dot markers.
You certainly do.
Yeah, that's good.
That's cool, man.
So hopefully that'll be back, you know, and I'll once I get all this tied up. I know it's very tempting to start. I've gone up to the studio and started fiddling around with little ideas and stuff, and it's very easy to get sucked back into that bloat. I need to sort of like stop with that and just focus on getting this all prepared, really get everything ready to go with it.
That's the thing, like you said, as a musician, you're just constantly picking it up. You know, I must admit I hadn't touched my bass for quite a while, but during lockdown, especially when I was fully in lockdown, my bass got more attention than it has in a long time. So between doing just push play and my 9 to 5 in my gym and that side of focus on radio show and that side of things, I don't normally get to play as much as I would like to sometimes. But it was my own fault for picking it up and thinking, I can still play Black Dog. I can still play No, I couldn't. It
doesn't take long. It doesn't take long though to get back in. It's just, you know,
no. My fingers remembered where they needed to go, but my brain couldn't get them there quick enough.
Right, yeah.
That's the thing. But you know, a couple of weeks and snap the rust off my fingers and got it back in action. But.
Yeah. No, you know, it's addictive. You know, I've always been, you know, when I first got my studio set up, you know, for so many years I'd wanted to sort of have a setup where I could just go and record any ideas I wanted to, you know, and that's why things like I put that Thunder Moon out at the back end of last year. And it was just all instrumentals, you know what I mean? And it's nothing like the other stuff I do really. It's kind of, it's not blues and it's not, you know, and that was, I think that sort of stuff sort of came about because that was a collection of things from my hard drive from over the years, you know, I put it all as one thing. It was just, you know, because I like, you know, I wanted to have a way to record and get ideas out for such a long time, and then having my own sort of little studio, I can, you know, you can just do it, you know. And,
go and lay it down.
And not be blinkered, you know what I mean? You know, you know, sometimes you sort of get blinkered into sort of writing in a certain style, you know, or, you know, it's got to be a blues thing, it's got to be a sort of this sort of thing or that sort of thing. And sometimes it's nice just to not have any sort of like restrictions on what you're doing. You know, you're just making music and whatever it is, you know what I mean? And, you know, and that's the cool thing about Bandcamp, because you can put things out on there and it's not, you know, it's not an official release as such, but it's, you know, you can get some music out. And weirdly, that one, end of the year sold really well. It was like, I was shocked because it was an instrumental, it wasn't blues, and there was some really obscure out there sort of stuff. And you know, it's it did really well. I was quite shocked about that. I think a lot of it, you know, I think the importance of a cover. I thought that cover to that was, I really liked it. The one was like a moon's, like a
you like some moon circle type thing, didn't you, on that?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, it was based on a sort of like an old painting, and
all right,
and had that kind of arty sort of look about it. And I think that, you know, when you see something, you filter the music through that. So I think, you know, maybe the cover of that just did it. You know what I mean? It's something as simple as that. You know, people see a cover and
sometimes there's something like you say, as simple as that just grabs people's imagination, and they think, I'm gonna test that out and have a look, give it a listen and give it a spin and see where we go.
And that's my next thing with this. I'm just starting to sort out sort of the album artwork, and that's the next stage of this.
So have you got any ideas on the artwork, on the title or anything yet, or?
Title and artwork I'm still working on. I've got I've got ideas written down, and it's just, you know, sort of like deciding on one, and I've been sort of looking at different artists and stuff. I'm just scrolling through Instagram, you know, a different artists to sort of like approach about sort of, you know, getting a commission done, or, you know, or photography, you know. But again, it's just this particular lockdown is a killer really, because this is exactly the sort of month that I would have been sort of going and getting photography done or whatever, you know, all these different things that I needed to get done. It would have been this next month or so, but I'm just gonna have to kind of work around it, you know what I mean? I think they're looking at lockdown till March, aren't they? Is it March?
Yeah, I think there's sort of, well, they were talking about February. Now there seems to be rumours there's going to be end of March, but I don't know.
So it's kind of like, and it's a long time, but 2.5 months away, and I can't sort of, you know, obviously I've got to get stuff done before then. So So no, but it's all, it's all moving the right way. As soon as I get these masters done, that's the physical, that's the music sort of side of it's all wrapped.
While we're talking about artwork, who did the artwork for the Island album? Because I really like the artwork for Island.
I was talking to my partner about that last night, because we were talking about artwork and album artwork, and that was a guy called Aaron Gardner who did the RHR first album. And he's done Mike Ross's artwork. I contacted him, and we sort of threw some ideas, and in fact, I might have already done it. I took a picture of the resonator. I just put the resonator on a table, which is out in the garden, like just a garden bench sort of thing.
Yeah.
Stood up on the bench and took a photo from above, and sent that across to Aaron, and he sort of fiddled with it. Did a little bit. He put a slight vignette on the photo.
Yeah.
And put the title, and that was it. So that was a super easy one. That was something like with just I think it was my phone camera. I think it wasn't even a proper camera. It was just like, so that was super simple, but it looked, I loved the look of that cover. I was, and there's nothing, there's nothing, it couldn't, for me, that one couldn't be any better. Like, he then took that and sort of made the package, and for the CD and all that. But as a cover, that was just so simple. So that's what I was saying when I was talking about.
It's funny that you said like certain album covers, they become classics, and they are like the simplest of things. I was watching a thing on Bon Jovi. It came up on telly over Christmas, and there was classic albums on some of the digi channels. I was watching it for Slippery When Wet, and that was literally like a bin liner which they sprayed with water, and then just wrote Slippery When Wet with their finger. And you think, and then I sort of dug my album out of the thing, and I was sort of, of all the years I've seen that album cover.
I didn't know that. I've
never known it, because apparently they had an original cover, which was a stripper with a Slippery When Wet t-shirt on, and like a wet t-shirt competition type scenario. Yeah. And the management company wouldn't let them release it because they said, certain stores won't hold the album because the image is too provocative and all that kind of thing. And they were like, all right, you've got to change the album. You've got to change it now. And so they literally were just like, oh, hang on, what have we got about that we can do? Because they'd spent all the money on the album cover that they weren't allowed to use. So it was literally like a bin liner that they just sprayed with water and then got their finger out and wrote Slippery and Wet in the droplets and took a photo. Bang, there you go.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was absolutely...
But it's weird, with an album cover, whatever you do, like whatever it is, any idea, as soon as you present that as being that's the album cover, no one questions it, because it's just that is the album cover, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was looking through, a friend of mine, like I'm living up in near, well, I've just moved away, like 6 miles away from Hay, but there was a guy called Richard Evans who I was friends with, and he was the guy who did, he worked at Hypnosis, which was the guys who did Dark Side of the Moon and the Houses of the Holy and all those iconic ones. And he wrote a book called The Art of the Album Cover. Oh, wow, and it's literally sort of like from the history right through. And I was looking at it last night. It was brilliant. I hadn't looked at it for years, and I was scrolling through it. Yeah. And it was just interesting to see what album covers are, and how simple some covers are, and just but how they become like Madonna's like like Madonna's True Blue album cover, that sort of those very simple. It's just a side headshot, but it's an iconic cover, and not that I'm a Madonna fan, don't get me wrong, but the covers, but everyone knows that image.
It's an iconic image.
So it's a tricky, I've still got to pin that one down, but but because I'm so pleased with the music, and the cover really has to sort of has to match up, I've got to get something I'm 100% with.
Yeah, definitely. You want to, like you say, match the music that you're so happy with. You want it to be. You don't want to look at the art and think, I could have tweaked this. I could have done that. It's got.
No, and this is the first time I'm getting vinyl done. I've never had vinyl done before for anything. And so obviously the artwork, then you're thinking large artwork.
Yeah.
So you want someone that's going to look good. So that's, instead of thinking CD size, I'm going to be thinking to start with, full LP size. So that's going to be good. That'd be cool to have some vinyl done. And Abbey Road actually make they hand lathe yeah,
because they've got their own label and stuff over there, don't they? Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, and it's meant to be better. It's supposed to be a better sort of sound quality if you hand lay. No, I don't know what I'm not a massive vinyl head. You know what I mean? I've got vinyl, but but I think from what I read up about it, the hand laid is the best way to go.
Oh, cool.
But what you've got to do is you've got to immediately get it produced. Once they cut it by hand, it has to go straight to the factory that you're producing it at. So what I've said to them, if they do the mixes for vinyl, but hold off, so I can then just, when I get we'll get the artwork ready to go, I can then just send it to them, and so we'll send it to the company who's making the vinyl, and then they can send the masters down there.
Send it straight through.
Yeah. But no, it'd be cool, and I'm really looking forward to that. I just need to look into that to go with the gatefold or something like that. just to make it sort of like a really nice object. You know what I mean? Just because a lot of the time I think people buy the CD and they buy the vinyl as an object. I think it's a slightly different thing, isn't it?
Definitely. There's definitely albums that. Well, there's albums I've just come to look at my record collection now, but there's albums I've got on CDs, and there's albums I've got just on vinyl, and then there's albums I've got on both. And like you say, I think it's that thing of people do end up buying them as a pure object. And it's like I say, I think a lot of bands and upcoming artists are starting to release a lot more vinyl again, and it's not become a thing you get in a car boot sale anymore. Again, it's
no,
a lot more current bands and artists doing it again, which is cool.
And you've got folks like I was watching it's Jack White. It is he's got a record plant, isn't he? Where he makes his own stuff and just the stuff that like he was putting into his this a couple of years ago, but he was putting all sorts of things. If you put the needle into one groove, you get the acoustic intro to a song, and if you put it in a different groove, you get the electric intro, and it would eventually both lead into the same track. So it would, halfway through the song, it would become the same song. And it was just loads. I think in this one record, he put about 7 different things. That were on the inside. He got some guys to put some kind of etching in that when you played it, 2 little angels, holographic angels, appeared above the record and stuff like that. It was just mad.
That's insane.
But it made it. Yeah, well, it just made it into this object. That was more than a record. It was kind of like 60 quid or whatever. Maybe. But
that's
as a collector or something.
Like all the things in there. I'm a big Bowie fan, and when I got Bowie's Black Star on vinyl, it was all the stuff that started to reveal itself once you had the vinyl for some time, and it starts to wear a bit. And excuse me. So more stars started to show in the cover and reveal themselves in that way, because once it's the paint they used or whatever they used on the cover, once it started to oxidize, there was more and more stars were sort of appearing on the actual cover of the vinyl as well, and stuff like that, which was.
Were they? Well, they did that purposely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so you had the sort of classic, which was just still the white with the main black star in the middle, and then the longer you had it out, you had it. It was over a period of I was easy within over a year, say. More and more. Well, I don't know how they've done it. It was something to do with, I guess, the inks oxidizing or whatever. But more and more tiny little stars in the background started to appear.
Right.
Like that, which is pretty cool.
That album's such a good album. I was listening to that only a few days ago, and like Mark Giuliano, that drummer, like he's just so good. He's it's just super inventive. Like I think that album brought him to the sort of more into the mainstream. But he's one of these guys that thinks outside the box and plays so differently, and the sounds he uses with the cymbals on the snare, and the kind of it makes it sound almost electronic, and plays from that kind of headspace. It's fun.
I think that album though required someone like that.
Yeah.
I don't think you could have got a Phil Rudd or whoever just doing 4/4 drumming on that.
No.
It wouldn't have worked. But like you say, he's a very unorthodox drummer. But sometimes most unorthodox musicians are just what's needed.
Yeah, and with that, it's like a proper. What I like about Bowie is that his music was always like artistic. It was art. Do you know what I mean? I always felt like it was. Obviously, there was there were singles and stuff like that. So you put it out, but you felt like that he was trying. He was trying to do something different. He was trying to be creative, and it was more going on. You know what I mean? Than just singles and just And there's not many artists like that. Not many artists that big who would take that risk to do something interesting. And who else is there? You know what I mean? And none of those his contemporaries do that. the Stones. I love the Stones, but they're not taking chat. They're playing.
They've got their formula and they stick to it. But like you say, with Bowie, it was every album, or certainly every few albums, was right. I've done that. You know, I remember seeing interviews with him when he was doing Tin Machine stuff, and he's going, "Look, I'm not doing Ziggy. I'm not doing Aladdin Sane. This is Tin Machine. It's not even David Bowie. This is what I'm doing." And there's certainly some latter albums that sort of come to appreciate. And recently was the anniversary of his death, and I was sitting here working from home, and I thought, I'm going to dig some stuff I've not played for a little while, and I ended up putting on the Earthling album, which I hadn't heard.
I was just going to say that Reeves Gabrel's on that. His guitar playing is brilliant.
Fantastic guitar playing.
Yeah. He's a big influence. Like that guy and that album has kind of stuck in my head because I use a whammy pedal and I got Sustainer guitar. I've had it for years, and when
Hold on, you gone?
Approach to playing is kind of, you know, it's
you go, mate.
Glitching.
Yeah, I think I've got you back.
Am I back on?
Yeah, you're back now.
Cool. Yeah, when I, you know, Reeves Gabrel's, you know, his playing had a, you know, sort of massive influence really, in just the especially from Earthling with the whammy pedal and the Sustainer guitar. And I end up finding myself sort of like going into that headspace, you know, when I'm playing live and stuff, especially if I got that guitar in that way, you know. Yeah. Such a good album, and still stands up. You know, I think that album, you know, still sort of stands.
I definitely do. I mean, like I say, I hadn't listened to it for some time for whatever reason, and then I just decided, I've not played that one for an album. As I say, you know, it was the anniversary of Bowie's passing, and I thought, I'm working from home, but I'm going to sit here and I'm just going to chuck a load of Bowie on while I'm working. I thought, Earthling, I've not listened to that for a while. Chuck that on, and I was sitting there thinking, why have I not listened to this for so long?
Yeah.
It's such a good record. It's so overlooked as well. I mean, I'm saying it's Bowie, so, you know, everyone thinks of the hits. Everyone thinks of Life on Mars and Changes. Yeah. And Low, and maybe even the Berlin period. And all albums and songs that I love, don't get me wrong, but certainly on the latter, and the album before Opposites as well, I really like.
I don't know that one. I didn't listen to that one.
Yeah, it was sort of, in a way, a bit of a precursor to Earthling. He'd started to go down there, teasing. It was not as, so the Earthling's quite industrial kind of in places. Sounded a bit more old, and he'd started to go down that route a bit on Opposite, which was the album before. But that's worth checking out if you've not heard that.
Is David Torn on there? Is it David Torn? Because he did a bit with him like that. I don't know if you heard of that guy.
I think he is, yeah.
Right, because he's another one of my favourite. A lot of my favourite guitar players are those kind of left field, strange players who do all like odd kind of like creative players. Really, they're just brilliant. Sort of like, you know, they're just on their own thing. They're not trying to sound like anything else. It's just, you know, interesting creative playing. You know, and David Torn, Reeves Gabrel's, like, that's the thing about Bowie. He always had his finger on the pulse of all those creative players, and he knew who they were. Got them in on the albums, you know. He got Adrian Belew from Zappa's band, didn't he? This famous story of him poaching him. He went to see him. The story's great. He must have been living in Germany, and Zappa came through with that band in the late '70s, and Bowie must have grabbed Adrian after and asked him to go for dinner with him. Yeah, because he obviously had his eyes on sort of like getting him in his band, and so they went out for food, and they happened in the whole of Berlin. They happened to go to the same restaurant that Zappa and the rest of the band were already at.
All right.
He'd gone to sort of poach him and took him to the, you know, and they all sat down, and Bowie sort of said, Zappa, great guitar player you got here, Frank, and Frank said to him, "Fuck you, Captain Tom." I think he sort of like, you know, he knew what he was saying. You know, he knew he was going to pinch one of his guitar players, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you know, I don't think Zappa was very happy about it. You know, his guys were all just paid guys, like a bit like Bowie. Really, they were hired hands. You know what I mean? But I think, you know, Adrian, you know, is a great guitar player, and I can imagine losing him would have been a bit of a nightmare to replace. But
it's not someone. He's not completely orthodox in his playing. So to try and get someone who had the same feel as Adrian Belew would be nightmare.
But you could understand Adrian sort of going with him, because, you know, Frank had obviously, like, Frank Zappa's reputation of fan base, like everyone knows, like Zappa was just like, you know, musicians like would just know how good Zappa was. You know, if you've been in Zappa's band, you're a good player because, you know, if you could play that material, you're good.
You're good, yeah.
But then when you go with Bowie, like the exposure is just ridiculous. I mean, that's like the top exposure you could possibly get as a musician. So, you know, I can imagine Adrian making that decision, and they went with Talking Heads and then King Crimson. Like his career's like he's got some.
He played with Nine Inch Nails at one point. It was really bizarre.
I didn't know that. I didn't know.
I'm sure he played on a Nine Inch Nails record.
He probably would have. That sounds like this, you know, the sort of thing you do.
I don't think he did like the tour or anything, but I think it's on Hesitation Marks, the album they did 2013. I'm sure he ended up playing on that, and not like necessarily the whole album, but I'm sure he did a few tracks on that. That's going to annoy me. I'm going to have to look at my CDs later before I realise I'm absolute rubbish.
He's another one, you know, like I said, he's another one of my favourite players. I followed, you know, Adrian solo stuff. Like he did a couple of albums called Side 1, Side 2, and Side 3, and those are just cracking, you know, really sort of left field sort of stuff. But I love it.
I love that when you get artists who pair up in music and bands that you don't expect them to, though.
Yeah.
I'm a big Alice in Chains fan, and I was when they did the first album, William DeVal, Black Gives Way to Blue, and I was listening to the title track, and there's this really cool sort of piano-led intro thing. This runs throughout the whole song, and I was just sort of curious, and I thought, well, I know Jerry Cantrell plays piano a little bit, but as I do any time I'm soaking up an album, I sit there and look through my booklet and read it all. And it was Elton John who was doing the piano on it. And I was like, Elton John's on an Alice in Chains album. And then I saw an interview with Jerry Cantrell when they were promoting the record. And they asked him about, you know, how did you end up getting Elton John to play the piano on Black Gives Way to Blue? And he said, well, when we were recording the album, Elton John was recording in the same studio, sort of in the next room sort of thing. And he said, I'm a big Elton John fan and all that. So he said, I met him at a couple of things, and I just want to go say hello. He said, so I want to go say hello, and I'm having a chat. And he sort of said, oh, what are you doing? Well, we're in there at the minute recording this thing. Oh, how's it going? And they were just both talking about what they were recording sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, yeah, right. And he said, I jokingly said to him, oh, we need you because I keep ballsing up this piano part on the title track, and we're trying to get it down, and I keep mucking it up. And obviously he's next to Elton at the piano, and he's going, well, what are you playing? Just show me what you want playing. And he's like, what? He said, so it's the most nervous. He said, I've played in front of tens of thousands of people, and this is the most nervous I've ever been in my life. I'm sat there next to Elton John, trying to show him what I'm trying to work out on piano. He said, I played the thing. I played it once. He went, play that again. And he said, so I played it again. And then he said, then Elton played it. And he went, is that what you're after? He went, yeah. And he just looked back at the producer and went, did you get that? And just sent it to him and went, here you go, there's the take. And it was just simple as that. You think, absolutely.
Because that's a bizarre mix of people. You'd never know. You wouldn't put them together, would you?
But also, Elton John then, on another album that I never thought he would appear on, he was on a Queens of the Stone Age record, which was even more bizarre when we're going through that. And that was the same thing. I got to the end, and I again just flicking through stuff. I don't know the story behind that one, but just flicking through things, and Elton John appeared on one track on this Queens of the Stone Age album. But I do like it when you see artists just sort of go, yeah, I'll go do that. Why not?
Yeah. Luckily, there's a story for that. For what I've just been recording, I was at the same festival. I said, I met Derby.
Oh yeah.
There was a guy called Bumblefoot. Do you know Ron Thal?
Yeah. Bumblefoot. Yeah. With Black Lead and Guns N' Roses for a little bit, and great guitarist. That's
it. Yeah. Well, he was there playing, and we get to the festival, and it's called Sato Blues in Poland, and it's absolutely the guy who runs it, Victor Chura, the guy's called, and he's got a radio show over in Poland. He plays lots of guitar and blues sort of stuff. He's got it so it was just an unbelievably well organised festival. When we got there was a press conference and stuff, and all this kind of going on, and I sat next to Bumblefoot, and Anthony Gomes. Is it Anthony Gomes?
Yeah.
Have you heard of him? Anthony Gomes, American guitar player. He was there. He was there as well. He was on the one night. So he was at the press conference. Yeah, sat by Bumblefoot and immediately just seemed like such a cool guy. Just no nonsense and just had a great sense of humor. You know, just like one of these guys, very sort of like dry, cool sense of humor. And we got on really well. And because we were all at the festival sort of for the weekend, you know, we were staying over. They put us up for the hotel so we could be there the whole weekend, even though we were playing on the Sunday. On the Saturday, we were sort of like all kicking around this venue because it was like in an auditorium sort of place. So there was, you know, backstage and out we were sort of kicking around. And, you know, I spent quite a bit of time chatting to Bumblefoot and just got on really, you know. Anyway, on the Saturday night, Anthony Gomes was headlining. And we were kind of at the back of the stage. I was with Bumblefoot and Dudley Taft was there, another American guy. And Bumblefoot said to me, "You coming for the jam?" And I said, "No, I don't know anything about a jam. No, maybe it's just for the Saturday night guys, you know, because I've not heard anything about it." He said, "No, man, come on." He said, "No, come on, you know, come on." So all right, well, I'll come. So Anthony's just sort of like finishing off his set, you know, and the crowd is like, it was a packed monster crowd, and they're all going, you know, the Polish audiences are pretty full on, you know, they were. So we're at the side of the stage, and Victor, the organizer's there, and we're looking at what amps are on stage. I'm thinking there's a Fender amp there, but there's no effects pedals, there's nothing. You'd just be plugging into a clean Fender amp, and this was like a rock gig, you know what I mean? That would not, because you know, it'd be almost impossible to play because, you know, with a clean sound you can't do anything, you know what I mean, unless you're playing specifically clean, you know. But
unless you're Brian May, you can't really do anything.
Right. No, yeah, unless you had like a Vox crank or something, you know. So I'm kind of thinking, shit, what, you know, what's going to go on here? You know, how am I going to get away with this? So anyhow, it's all a bit chaotic. Bumblefoot goes out on stage with his double neck guitar. He's got he plays this double neck. One's a fretless and one's a sort of like a normal electric guitar, sort of big old thing. He's got like an Ibanez, I think, more maybe. And he heads out, and they play "Knocking on Heaven's Door" because he was in Guns N' Roses. I think they play a stonking version of that. So I'm kind of resigned to the fact that I ain't going to be going out, and like, it's cool because, you know, I wasn't expecting to do it anyhow. So I'm just at the side of the stage watching them and thinking it's great. They come off because that's it. You know, that's their encore. They come off, and Bumblefoot looks at me, and he knew that he was going to get me on stage because that's what he wanted, to get me up there. Yeah. And he says to Anthony, it's Anthony's gig, Anthony's headline, and he says to Anthony, so we're going to do another one. And Anthony, because like Bumblefoot's got, you know, is really respected, you know, he's you know, so I could see Anthony not wanting to do it because he's done, but not wanting to say no to Bumblefoot because it's Bumblefoot. So it was this awkward situation where they kind of look at, oh, okay, we'll do another one. Yeah. So then Bumblefoot puts his guitar on me and sends me out with his guitar, like, you know, and it was stonking, you know. It was a cracking, and that was the final track of the night. But it was just pretty hairy because normally when you do a gig, you warm into the gig, you know. You sort of, you know, you go out, you kind of like do. But this was kind of like going onto a tail end of someone's encore when the crowd are all fully charged.
Yeah, already up there.
Yeah, it was great. There was a massive adrenaline rush because it was just like Jesus, you know. And his guitar was great. I made sure I wanted to, even though I never played a fretless, and there's a big toggle, you know, you can toggle between the neck, you know.
Each of the neck, yeah.
So I toggled down to the fretless and played it, and it was great. It was just weird because you can't do any string bends, obviously, because there are no frets. So if you're going to do any sort of like vibrato, it's almost like a violin. You know, you've got to go backwards and forwards instead of up and down.
Okay.
But it was cracking, you know. So anyhow, so me and Bumble, like, he was a lovely guy. He sort of like he went out of his way to get me up that night. And so when I'm driving back from the festival, I thought, right, I spoke about it to my partner. I was like, you know, I'd love to get him to do some recording, like just play on one track because he's, you know, such cool. And it's one of those dilemmas, you know. I don't want to sort of hassle the guy because, you know, he's a top guy. Just get on with him, and I think I'm sort of, you know, asking sort of like, you know, for something that. Anyway, sent a message over and said, would you be up for sort of putting a track? Then he was like, yeah, man, you know, just send it over. And I sent him the track over, and he just absolutely nailed it, man. He's just like the solo he's put on this track is just like killer. Like he just because he's a technical player, isn't he? And
very technical.
But it's technical and tasty. You know, some technical playing can just be like soulless crap. You know, but this is just interesting. Kind of, I don't know. We had a theory, but it's tasty. And so I was so chuffed to get him to do that. And
I bet, man.
I got in touch with Billy actually, Billy Sheehan. I did, but I was going to get Billy to play on one of the tracks, the same track, but it was just a little bit backwards and forwards, and then it was the recordings obviously got put on hold. So in the end, I just kind of I just thought, no, I'll go with Dave's playing on that. But it's interesting. So it's slightly different. When I got Bumblefoot to do that, it was kind of pre-lockdown. Since lockdown, there's been a lot of collaborations. That's become the norm, isn't it?
There's been a lot of collaborations between musicians.
It's which is a good thing. Like a Darby Todd, the guy who was drumming on my album, he's just put an album out, and if you get a chance to sort of look on his website, the list of who he's got on it is just ridiculous. He got in touch with Bumblefoot. Actually, Bumblefoot's on there. There's I think Martin Barr's on there, Justin Hawkins on the dark. Marco Miniman, who's another amazing drummer from the Aristocrats.
I saw Marco play with Steve Wilson a few years ago.
Right. They're just like, but I can't remember all the names. But there's a lot of people he's got sort of playing on there. Matthias A.I. Eklund, who's another sort of like freaky guitar player. But no, that'd be definitely worth checking that out. Because,
check that out, man. Definitely.
He sent me a preview of it, man, and it's just like if you're into technical, like super technical, precise, like but very very tasty playing, that's the album. Because like I said to you before, there's a lot of players out there in that world of technical, virtuoso sort of playing. That can get a bit boring, you know what I mean? But the guys he's got on this, it's just anything but. It's just like Jesus. Those guitar lines, like when you hear that sort of fast stuff or some lot of legato stuff, I've never heard those kind of lines.
No.
And that's nice when you hear that sort of stuff, because generally it's like it's all been done before, and a lot of that.
Oh yeah.
But he's done. I think there's some covers. I think there's 4 covers on there. I think it's a Tony Williams one with Alan Holdsworth off. I can't think of the album. Is it Lifetime? Tony Williams' Lifetime album. The drummer Tony Williams, Alan Holdsworth. They've done that one. They've done a Billy Cobham one. It's great.
I'll have to check that out, man.
Because you're into that sort of stuff as well. Like you're into the technical sort of like.
I like a bit of everything. Yeah, so I say the first time I saw Marco Moment, that was with Stephen Wilson, and just an incredible drummer.
Yeah. No, I love it. All those players are great. I love all that. But it's not it's not. Go on, sorry, man.
No, man. At that gig, I was completely transfixed with Guthrie Govan at that gig. I don't know if you know. You've probably seen.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, like I say, I'm a bass player, and Nick Beggs is one of my favourites. So I wasn't a Kajagoogoo fan. Don't get me wrong. But seeing him I couldn't even believe it was the same bloke. And then seeing him when the first time I saw Stephen Wilson with Nick Beggs playing, and I was just transfixed with Nick Beggs playing. I was like, man, this guy's incredible.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I'm like, so as you do, because I didn't know who was, and introduced the band afterwards. Right? And at the end of the show, and he's going, and this Nick Beggs on bass. I'm going, I know that name. Why do I know that name? So like we got out the tube out of London onto the train line, and I'm on my phone like, who is it? And I'm like, is that really the guy who played in Kajagoogoo now playing? Because just a phenomenal player. But so normally I'm sort of completely transfixed watching Nick Beggs play bass. The next time I saw Stephen Wilson around was the first time I saw Guthrie Govan. And Joe went, I knew he was a good guitarist because you weren't watching Nick Beggs. You were just transfixed. It's just like, Joe went, you're not even looking at one of your favourite bass players. I just couldn't take my eyes off Guthrie.
He's fantastic. All those guys, Paul Gilbert's another one. All those, No, he's. I listen. But I would say out of all of those, Alan Holdsworth is my sort of favourite. He's that guy was just like an alien. And when he died recently, it was a couple of years back. He died. I remember sort of like Eddie Van Halen, Steve Vai. It was just everyone was coming out and saying that guy was just the man. I think it was Eddie who got him signed to Warner Brothers. I think because he loved him so much. And Yeah, and I know Zappa, Zappa again would be scathing about everyone, but he offered him 10 days. Zappa offered to stop working for 10 days so he could use Zappa Studio, and that was just like unheard of because Zappa was like a workaholic.
Yeah.
Well, I think he was the sort of thing. He was like unassuming. He wasn't a rock star, Alan Holdsworth. He looked like a guy, just some sort of like middle-aged guy, dressed really normally, and there was no kind of like pretense or anything. But he was just like, the stuff he was playing on the guitar was just like would fry your head, it was just like a different world of guitar playing, even from people like Eddie Van Halen and Steve Vais and all those guys. This was like something else. The guy, in fact, on YouTube, he's got it must be one of those hot licks videos that someone's transferred onto YouTube, but it's showing you his theory, how he works out his theory, and you get sort of like 5 minutes into it, and you're just like, Jesus, I can't get my head around this. I'm just gonna stop.
I'm gonna stop trying.
Yeah, but it's great to listen to. Like, I love it. When I listen to music in the car, I listen to a lot of Alan Holdsworth.
I must admit, he's not someone I've explored too much. I've heard the odd thing here and there, but he's not someone I've explored too much, Alan Holdsworth. People keep telling me to.
It's out there, there's an album called Road Games, which I think was the first one with Warner, I think, if I got that right. And there was some great guitar playing on that one. It's a little bit fusiony. It's not sort of rock, there's some vocals on there. He's got a male vocalist guy on there, and it's just like its own little thing. It's a bit like, again, like Zappa, with it's like its own little universe. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like anything else. It's just like existed on its own. So it's not part of any. I think that's why he struggled, getting gigs. I know that his gigs weren't that well attended, like because he wasn't jazz.
No,
he wouldn't get on a jazz festival, and he wouldn't get on a rock festival because he wasn't rock.
No,
I mean, he's kind of like he was in between. Yeah. And you see sort of anything on YouTube, and there's not a lot of people, but yeah, you've got one of the best guitar players. That I think a lot of people would say that has lived. And there's 40 people there.
It's crazy, isn't it? Absolutely crazy.
Mental, yeah. Yeah, I suppose again it's like we're back to that PR machine. I don't think you probably had like a massive PR thing, so we just do gigs, and the people who knew about it, would sort of turn up. It was one of those sort of.
One of those sort of guys.
Yeah. When it all gets back to normal, hopefully they'll just, the scene will be bigger than ever, because people, it's just like the brakes are put on, the stops are put. So hopefully when that's lifted, the floodgates will be open again, and people will be back more enthusiastic than they were before, because because then people realise what they're missing. And when it's taken away, when you can't do it. So I'm just hoping that's that's the. Well, I think it will be, wouldn't it? It's bound to be people who are live music fans of just climbing the walls, really, aren't they?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I've not been to a gig since Winter's End Festival, so I was at February last year, and to go nearly a year with no gig for me is just unheard of. It just doesn't happen. But like you said, I think when those restrictions get lifted, I think people are just, like you say, going to be clambering the walls and going to everything and anything they possibly can. So.
Well, I'm just just hope that by the end of the year it's done. I'm just hoping that sort of past August, and but it's really hard to tell, isn't it, when you got the mutations sort of going on. The worst case scenario would be a sort of like a bad mutation where it's more sort of dangerous, and that'd be the one you wouldn't want to happen.
Yeah, you want to go.
No, so but fingers crossed. I think most bands are booking 2022 now, aren't they? So that's a safe bet. I think anything earlier than that's a little bit sort of like risky, because you just unknown, isn't it?
It is at the moment. Yeah, it's a little unknown at the minute. But like you say, I think we're all going to be, as soon as we get the okay to do it, I think people are going to be looking for gigs the following day. So.
Yeah. I'd say I hope these venues are sort of being kept afloat. Because I know that just before lockdown, I got a 6-week tour with Willie and the Bandits.
Yes.
We're 3 weeks into a 6-week tour, and that's when the lockdown happened. We got sort of stopped literally halfway through, and we played at the Deaf Institute up in Manchester, and I know that one's gone.
Yeah, and where did I go see Gorilla Riot in Manchester? That got shut down.
That's it. That was another one. The other one, wasn't it? Yeah. hopefully someone will pick those back up. Just I suppose
it's a great venue. I only went there once, but
yeah, I love the Deaf Institute. The Deaf Institute was brilliant. That was a great sound system, and I've been to see a band. One of my favourite sort of bands from the '90s was a band called Space Hog. I absolutely love that. Royston Langdon has probably got one of the best voices, I think, in rock. And he's still doing stuff, like he's still doing live streams and stuff on his channel. And I saw them at the Deaf Institute, and they were just absolutely mind blowing. First time I saw those guys was in '98 on the Chinese album, and that was in Wolverhampton at the Varsity. And Jesus. They don't like on record. They don't come across as a ferocious rock band, But those guys, I've never seen anything as full on in my. They're just like brutal. It was a loud sound system. But that fired me up for years. That did, with music. Great band.
Oh, nice one, man. We're going to play "Doing Time" at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Or the beginning of the interview, because that's probably my favourite track off Island. What song do you want us to play at the end of the interview, mate?
If I get you to play "East of Eden" from that one, and I'll send you the Dropbox now.
Yeah, sounds great, man.
Yeah, it's an instrumental sort of guitar-y one, but it's it's not like anything other stuff. It's that instrumental album, so
yeah,
it'd be cool to sort of have something a bit different. I was racking my brain thinking of old stuff, and I was going through my head about the old albums and trying to sort of run the tracks, and I thought something newer, and something a bit different.
All right, we'll go with that.
Wicked. So I'll if I get over to Dropbox and fire that over. Yeah, I'll have to do that after the other thing. I'm signing in on my girlfriend's Dropbox.
Oh no, you're fine. That's all right, man.
Yeah, so I'll fire that across.
All right, dude. But yeah, we'll give that a spin.
Nice one, man. Thank you.
No, thank you, dude. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's gone quick, isn't it?
It certainly has. I didn't realise.
I forgot you recording it about halfway through. I was just happily chatting.
I did. That's why I completely lost it when I was like, "Yeah, what song am I playing at the beginning again?" Just completely out of my life. So I was just having a chat. It was nice.
Yeah, nice one, man.
All right, man. Well, no doubt I'll speak to you soon, and enjoy the rest of your evening, buddy.